Hey dudes, B Junior here from B Junior's Movie Cave on the Endurance Productions YouTube channel. Gonna do kind of an impromptu, just informal movie review-ish because it just the moment was upon me. Basically, I'm just gonna speak my mind this evening. It's April Fool's Day, and it just dawned on me that I've never reviewed April Fool's Day or any type of movie like that on April Fool's Day. So I was talking it over with my wife in passing, and I was like, dude, I can just run in there and do a review real quick. So without further delay, I'm going to review not just one, the customary one that you would expect, April Fool's Day, but also I'm going to talk a little bit about Slaughter High. And there's a little history behind that, and I'll get to that in a moment. April Fool's Day, if you're a horror nut, guys, you're going to know what this movie's about. I don't really have to explain it to you. The movie's been around, I think it came out in 1986. I saw it for the first time on either HBO or VHS home video. I've always loved April Fool's Day. It's kind of a love it or hate it kind of slasher. It's not the best one in the bunch, but it's definitely not the worst one in the bunch. There's that traditional artwork with the hair and the noose there. It's, like I said, not the best slasher out there. It's got that twist at the end. I think that's what really turns people off. If you've never seen the movie, I don't want to ruin it too much for you, but guys, you should have seen it by now. So this is going to be spoiler laden. So it's an old film. April Fool's Day, of course, centers in and around the holiday of April Fools. Takes place on kind of a very highly atmospheric setting of an island where an old house is being kind of a party is being held of like college buddies and friends and outer acquaintances all come together, have kind of like a party weekend together. Well, in true slasher format, April Fool's Day, what happens is people start getting knocked off one by one, and you never know who the killer is until probably about 2/3 of the way through the movie, or who you think the killer is. It kind of works into the twist of the movie at the end, basically, which becomes like a big April Fool's Day joke at the end of the movie. It's not real what you're watching. It's just a kind of a trial and error kind of deal, because the main proprietor, the girl of the house that they're taking the party to over the weekend, she's trying out like a murder mystery, a live murder mystery kind of setting that you would see like the hotel or something like that. She's going to turn the old house of her family into a bed and breakfast and kind of rent it out for adventure weekends and stuff like that. So that's what they tried to do, So basically, there's twists and turns towards the end of the movie, and I love the tagline: "Last one out's a goner." Amy Steele shows up in it from Friday the 13th Part 2. There's not really too much to say. It's just your regular mid-80s slasher, but it's above average, guys. I've always kind of championed April Fool's Day, mainly because it's one of those that just speaks to me. It's highly atmospheric. It's got a lot of young stars of the day of the 80s and that you've seen in other movies. Amy Steele, as I mentioned before, she was in Friday the 13th Part 2 and other films over the years. And I don't know, just one of those. It's oddly enough got the guy that played Biff in the Back to the Future trilogy. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that it's one of those that just kind of stuck with me. I like to get it out on April Fool's Day if I think about it. I didn't even know today. I didn't really notice today was April Fool's until my wife mentioned it, and I said, well, shoot, man, I got to review this. But on to the next one. Another one that you've probably seen over the years is Slaughter High. Oddly enough, Slaughter High was shot, I believe, under the title April Fool's Day. When they caught wind at the folks in America, I think it was. I think this was an English production. I'm not real sure. I can't remember for exactly, but they heard that this one was already coming out under the moniker of April Fool's Day. They switched it to Slaughter High. But if you watch Slaughter High and listen to it closely, the characters, it takes place on April Fool's Day, basically. And there's a lot of April Fool's Day jokes and stuff like that going on in the movie. And just one of those that I also, Slaughter High is more of kind of like a horror comedy to some degree, but it's still a slasher. It's got an odd, very opening scene to the movie where they it's kind of like the old Terror Train thing where they haze. It's a lot of hazing going on, and they pick on a weaker, nerdy guy, and he gets hurt in the process and comes back to take his vengeance later on. So it's your standard slasher setup. They come back for a high school reunion. Carolyn Monroe, as you know from movies like Maniac, Star Crash, and I think a Bond film that she did. She's been in a lot of B movies too as well. She shows up in this. She's like, I think, mid to late 30s, but she's playing an 18-year-old. So it's just one of those. If you have the Arrow edition, it talks about that in there and in her interviews and stuff. So, but Slaughter High, there again, these are just two notable ones that you could watch on April Fool's Day, and it'll work all the same either way you go about it. And if you're a hard nut like me, you're really going to enjoy these over and over again, because you can't take them too seriously, guys. I think for sheer atmospheric setting and production value, I got to go with April Fool's Day. But for sheer laughs and just bad in that good way kind of quality, I got to go with Slaughter High. Both of which are good 80s slashers. They're probably not the forerunner. They didn't spawn any sequels or anything like that. But just standard ones, sort of like Happy Birthday to Me, Terror Train, just kind of like the second tier that you would kind of go to whenever you watch Friday the 13th enough. And you know, they're going to be about the same, but it's just one of those deals where if you're just looking for something different, especially on April Fool's Day, try one of these out. I don't think you'll be sorry. This has been your impromptu, informal reviewage of April Fool's Day horror favorites. Rock on, dudes. Bye.